The Miami Hurricanes are about to open up their season against a top 5 team who just played for the national championship last year. It's a great measuring stick for the group that Mario Cristobal has spent the past 3.5 years assembling. Here's how Miami's roster stacks up against Notre Dame's.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, if there is such a thing. Well, I think in this case there is. 6 days away from game day. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and host of Postgame on the Miami Hurricanes radio network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. On this loaded Monday episode, we're going to talk about the recruiting implications of Miami hosting Notre Dame this Sunday. We'll talk about the early returns from Hurricanes commits and targets in what was a really busy weekend around Florida and around the country in high school football. We'll talk about the quarterback matchup for this weekend. You've got experience on one side with Carson Beck and inexperience but talent with CJ Carr on the other side with Notre Dame. And speaking of talent, I want to talk about how Miami's roster stacks up, and that's a recurring theme when I have Larry Blustein on, who is the GOAT. Larry Blustein joins us now here on Locked On Canes. Blue, how are you on this Monday? And I know you were covering a ton of games over the weekend, and of course, we're all going to be looking at Miami versus Notre Dame this Sunday. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Alex. 7 games in 3 days. That was a lot of games. Double headers, triple headers. It's crazy. And then obviously we'll get into, some of the teams that we saw, but it was a national weekend for Florida. I know a lot of people today on a Monday are making a little bit too much of the fact that we went 1-11 against out-of-state teams, but you know what? I mean, and then all of a sudden it comes down to coaches' pay all of a sudden, but I don't get into that. That's not my lane. My lane is just to, look at the kids and, and rank them and evaluate them. And, we still have a lot of talent here, Alex. I don't have to tell you, you know that.
A lot of the players that you covered coming up through high school or on the Miami Hurricanes roster. Sure. Now, maybe you covered some of the guys who were on Notre Dame's roster. Blue, if we were to have this conversation, and we had conversations like this 3 years ago, I know you would have been extremely concerned about how Miami's talent, circa 2022, even 2023 would stack up against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they're loaded, and they just played in the national title game last year. But based on, the work that Mario Cristobal has done, Blue, and your take on how deep Miami's roster is right now, how do you think the Hurricanes stack up talent-wise with Notre Dame?
Yeah, they do. And, the whole thing is it is not about the talent because we know it's there, but it's a chemistry thing. And, when you have the portal and you kind of, especially on the defense, especially in the secondary, these kids are still introducing each other to each, selves to each other because they're all new. I mean, they've had a spring together and they've had, some time together, but, this is the fact that, a lot of the players on Miami's side of the ball defensively, secondary, weren't here last year. And then, and these are guys you're going to count on heavily. You mentioned CJ Carr, and you mentioned, the kid Greathouse and Faison from right up here in Boca Raton.
Malachi Fields, who they got from Virginia.
Exactly. So you take a look at players like that, and these, they've got experience, and and certainly that's going to be the point where we left the Pop-Tarts Bowl, that Miami couldn't stop anybody, and that's the fresh memory in our mind. And even though they added the pieces, have we seen it on the field? No. And that's the one thing of concern, because you're going against this is, and no slight to Bethune-Cookman, who we'll see, but this isn't Bethune-Cookman that we normally open with. This is one of the best teams in the country. And I know there's a reluctant to think that, that Notre Dame is going to be that good again last year because 2 years ago they lost to Marshall. Okay, so you take a look at the program and you say to yourself, this is one of the best programs that Miami will see all year. And they're coming in on opening night. And there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of questions, and rightfully so. You're a team, Miami, that you let the fan base down when they thought last year they were a shoo-in to be in the national playoffs. We'll go up to Syracuse and we'll take care of business, and we're up 21-0 and everything's good. And then, because of the lack of defense and especially in the secondary, it's football and everything happens. It's so different. Things bounce different ways. But we know this time, to answer your question, I went the roundabout way to answer your question. Yeah, Miami has that talent. They have the talent level we know on the offensive side of the ball, with easily one of the best and most deep line that they've had probably in 30 years. I mean, when have they ever had a line that's so good in the front line, and then all of a sudden with the backups, you have backups who can come in? This is, obviously you don't want to lose a Mawano or a Bell or guys like that. But if you do, I mean, you're not going to be running through the hallways like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? At least you have guys who have shown that they could step up. The question mark here, obviously, on this team, you have a great running game and a deep running game. And with the addition of Char Brown, I think you've helped yourself as far as depth, but you all already know who you have there. But the question mark is going to be with the receivers. You have the talent. Obviously, they added a lot of pieces to the receivers, but nobody's done anything yet. This
right.
isn't last year when you lost all that productivity. I mean, you're not getting those kids back from last year, and that whether this group is better potentially or not, they haven't done anything yet. And that's the thing. And the last time we really saw a Carson back, which and I relayed when I had Coach Cristobal on our radio show, my concern about him not practicing during the spring and not having the opportunity that a Cam Ward did to throw for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns in the spring game. So everybody left Green Tree thinking, hey, we've got a great quarterback. So you didn't have that feeling. Then when they left, they were looking at backup quarterbacks. They weren't looking at the starting quarterback. And we all know what Carson Beck's capable of. But, when he takes that first snap, it'll be the first time in almost 2 years that he's really been in a situation where the other team's jersey's not going to hold up when they get to him. They're going to go after him, and they're going to make life tough on him. And whether Miami has the greatest offensive line or not, defensively, Notre Dame without Al Golden, and that's going to make a difference too from a continuity standpoint, because Al put together a pretty good defense at Notre Dame, and he showed what he could do, and he's not around now. So, yeah, those are other questions. You see, not only do we have questions, but Notre Dame has questions. And that's the one thing that makes this game really attractive.
Boy, I want to unpack when we come back a few things from what Blue just talked about. On the offensive line, I think, and I don't think Marcus Freeman is doing this, but I think some of the people who cover Notre Dame are underestimating Miami's offensive line a little bit. I want to talk about what Blue was saying about Miami's receivers, and I want to get Blue's take on C.J. Carr, because, again, super, super talented young quarterback. He hasn't done it. So what should Miami fans expect? You want to keep it locked right here. We have Larry Blustein with us, who, folks, has been doing so much amazing work down here in South Florida. And if you've heard his radio show, I always say it, most informative in the country. You want to keep it locked. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiette Ready. Rugiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in 15 minutes, effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiette might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. I love that it's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to rugiet.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. And hey, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you for helping us out. Larry Blustein is here helping us out on a Monday, a game week Monday, Miami versus Notre Dame coming up. So, Blue, I've noticed that some of the Notre Dame content creators kind of go over Miami's offensive line, like, hey, maybe they're a little overrated. They're not going to stand up to our D line. And I've noticed, Blue, that one of the commenters in our YouTube channel recently, who's a Notre Dame fan who shows up in here, he keeps referring to Markel Bell as that JUCO transfer left tackle, as if he's some schlub. I'll remind folks, there was a JUCO transfer left tackle a little over 20 years ago named Bryant McKinney who did okay down here. And I think Markel Bell's going to do okay this year. How do you, Blue, see Miami's offensive line stacking up against a talented defensive front from the Irish?
Yeah, I spend more time during the spring when I went to visit Miami during their practices or during their spring game at watching the offensive line and watching what they do and watching some of the personnel and watching the coaching. Miami may have the best coaching in the country in the offensive line. Your head coach happens to be one of the best offensive line minds in the nation, and he doesn't compromise. And along with Alex Mirabal, who they've been together since high school, and they know each other extremely well. I watched Markel Bell, and I will tell those Notre Dame people, and this is coming from somebody who has watched somebody's progression. I don't think there's a player on this team who has improved more technically than this guy. I mean, already we already know he's 6'9.5", and he's a big guy. But I'll tell you what, during the spring, he impressed me so much with his footwork, with his ability to not make mistakes. And when he did, he was accountable to the point where, you see, at a lot of practices, a lot of coaches will pat somebody on the butt and say, hey, don't worry, you'll get it back. At Miami's practices, and this is why the offensive line is elevated, to the position it is. It's Ryan Rodriguez mentality of, no, we're going to do it again right now. And that's what Mario Cristobal and Coach Maribal preach. Don't give it to me again later. Give it to me now. Get your ass back in line and let's run this right. Let's stay low. Let's keep your pad level. And that's something that you looked with Inez Cooper and you looked at with Brockenmeyer and also Markel Bell. What they did is they fed off the greatness of a Francis Mauanoa and what he does technically. And they watched what he did and watched how he progressed to the point where he'll be a top 10 to 15 pick in the NFL draft next year because they're all technically sound. And that's what separates Miami. And for the Notre Dame fans or any fans who are skeptical, the one thing about Miami's offensive line and the reason why, and you and I probably could attest to this greater than anybody in the world, is we watched 4 years ago. And we watched, and you and I were in amazement, especially like when we did our pregame shows, in amazement how Miami's offensive line was being pushed back 5 yards, and the running backs couldn't start their run until they got 2 yards from the line of scrimmage. And this isn't happening anymore. And I don't care how great the defensive line is at Notre Dame or what schemes that they're going to dial up. You got to go against a group that is technically, I mean, really technically sound. And that's the thing that I've watched, Alex. And it, not just them. You look at Samson Okunlolo, you look at Matthew McCoy, you look at the backups like Juan Minaya. These guys also get it. Tommy Kinsler, players like that. Also, S.J. Alafatuli, he's another kid. He's the heir apparent to that center role. And that's what I'm saying. And if it all begins on the offense up front, I wouldn't worry because I've watched enough of these guys play and practice and mature. And that's the one thing about Bell. He was gawky 2 years ago, and I agree. I'll agree with that guy. He was a junior college transfer that was big. But I'll tell you what, nobody's worked harder. And I'll tell you what, every one of those players on that team will tell you that. And, this isn't blowing home smoke. This is reality. I've watched it. I've watched him unfold. I was the one who was on that bandwagon of, oh, geez, he's kind of gawky looking. I mean, he's got that Freeman Brown body, and he wasn't really, doing anything with it. And all of a sudden, the bell, so to speak, went off. And you watched him, you watched him last year in games and how he started to come around and mature. But I think his come to Jesus moment has been this offseason because I think he's worked harder than ever. He worked on his body. Go look at his body. His body's a whole different deal. And he gave himself a confidence when he got stronger, when he got physically more agile to become a better offensive lineman. And I think he's worked his way into where he's going to be playing in the NFL for a lot of years. But before he gets there, I think that he's got a lot to show these people that are going to come out next Sunday and watch across the country, that this kid isn't just a big junior college transfer. He's a lot more.
Yeah, and when Blue mentioned to you there that Markel has improved so much, it's funny because a little over a month ago when I talked to Mario Cristobal at ACC Media Days, he said it, and I didn't even set him up for this directly. He said Markel Bell is the most improved player on the team since last year. And that he could have named anybody on the roster. Markel Bell was the guy that he went with. And to sum up that O-line thing, any question or concern that I may have heading into this game, offensive line is not one of those. Like, I know that, and not to take anything away from Notre Dame's D-line, but I know Miami's offensive line is going to put them into good positions in this game. Now, Blue, on the flip side, I think it's very fair to say the biggest question for a really talented Notre Dame team would be the quarterback, since their starter has zero college experience, CJ Carr. And if they do, use Kenny Minchey at any points in this game, he also has virtually no experience. So at that position, they don't have returning starts and all that. I imagine you've probably followed CJ Carr even long before he got to college. What are your expectations, Blue? What should Miami fans be expecting from Notre Dame's redshirt freshman signal caller?
Okay, while CJ Carr has no experience, Jeremiah Love does. And he's one of the best running backs in the country. He and Jadarian Price are both a 1-2 punch that are, they are big time NFL potential type of guys. And they have an offensive line that's pretty agile too. They don't have a lot of, depth, but they do have frontline kids. The kid, Billy Schrouth, comes back. He's a big time type of kid. The Ashton Craig kid, in the interiors, the Sullivan Absher. Those are the interior guys where they run a lot in between, and that's where their pass blocking is. And the fact that they have Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse, two guys that have been there. They both played in the national championship game. And obviously, the kid Malachi Fields, as you mentioned, is a guy who's been there, done that. So that gives somebody like a CJ Carr a little bit more confidence going into this game. Two, it's because he's not the lone bandit. He's not coming into this game by himself. He's not coming in, oh, you're a freshman and we don't have anybody to put around you like the years that Miami had when they were forced to put in Duke Johnson right away as a true freshman at 17 years old when they didn't really need to. He had nobody else around him. The offensive line wasn't good. But in CJ Carr's situation, that's not it. He's got no experience, but everybody around him does. It's going to make his life a lot easier. They're going to see what Miami does defensively, because they have no film on Miami. They don't have a clue. They know what the front seven can do. And basically not even that, because of the fact that you've added, somebody new as a linebacker, obviously, and the kid Mohamed Toure, who wasn't there last year. Kamal Bonner wasn't there last year. So from the front seven, your front four, obviously, they know what Mesidor's capable of. They know what Bain's capable of. They saw Scott. They recruited the heck out of Scott when he was coming out of high school. So they know what type of, player he is, but they have no knowledge at all of Jacoby Thomas. They don't, other than OJ Frederick, who they watched last year, Zachariah Poyser. They have no clue about Xavier Lucas. They have no clue about Kalante Scott or any of the backups like Charles Brantley, who came from Michigan State, or Ethan O'Connor. So that's the advantage that Miami has, coming into the game. Whereas they've never seen the secondary, and that was by far Miami's weak point. That kept them out of the national championship. That kept them from winning the ACC title, and that's all revamped. And if you look, and we know because we've been close to the situation, and we've seen them practice, and we've seen them in spring games, and we've seen them, play in scrimmages, that these guys are for real. And this is nowhere near and you even have a kid that, that is so highly regarded, Damari Brown. The only thing that separated him from potential greatness is injury. So, you see, Alex, that's the thing. Everybody has their cross to bear on both sides. We haven't seen Carr, and we don't know, the Miami people don't know much about him, but they do know about Love, and they do know that their offensive line is good, and they saw Greathouse last year, and they've seen Fields before, and they've seen, they know Faison being a kid who comes out of Pinecrest High School in Fort Lauderdale as a lacrosse kid. And all of a sudden he goes to lacrosse scholarship at Notre Dame and becomes a pretty integral part, of what they were about, especially in the Indiana game and team, so you have players that Miami knows about, but there's that unknown about the quarterback, but there's not unknown about anybody else. The advantage Miami has, especially looking at that offense of Notre Dame, is that they're going to think, well, they were passed on at a record pace. If they start having somebody that young starting to hit Miami secondary with the activity, and remember, this is the whole different secondary. Yeah. Notre Dame's going to be making mistakes, and Miami's going to be picking balls off. And so you could almost 100 billion% guarantee this is going to be a run offense for Notre Dame. They're going to keep the ball on the ground. They know that's where they have success. They're going to never put the kid out to dry, Carr out to dry, at the position. So that's the type of game it's going to be. They're going to they're going to put Miami's defensive line to the test. Is Bain that good? Do we doubt Bain? Do we doubt Mesidor, who I call probably one of the more polarizing figures on that defense, because he's had more experience than anybody. And he came back when a lot of people never thought he would. And I thought that just from being in the locker room and an emotional support guy, a guy that the younger kids and even Bain can lean on, because he's got that maturity. And that's what's going to be fun. This is going to be a huge chess match. It's going to come to, and I would much rather now have Miami's defensive coordinator. Maybe last year that wasn't the deal, and I'm not going to take a shot at somebody who I liked as a person, but he just wasn't the fit for what Miami needed moving forward. But in Heatherman, he is. He's the dude. He doesn't care. He has like blinders on. He's not looking at the outside. He's looking at what's in front of him. He comes from the tree that Mario Cristobal comes from that Greg Schiano tree, PJ Fleck, those guys like that. They all come from that same mentality, that especially defensively. I mean, there might not have been a better defensive mind in his time than Greg Schiano. And that's where they all come from. And I like that. I like his mentality. I like the fact that he's not afraid to blitz and he's not afraid to bring those linebackers, and having somebody that he's worked with in the past and Mohamed Toure, he knows what he can count on. He knows that Wesley Bussain has been a dude, and he's going to gain 26 pounds in the offseason, and he looks a lot better. So yeah, this is going to be one of those games where we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how these guys are going to perform, but we do know there's a lot of great pieces in a lot of different positions that are going to be on display on that Sunday night for the entire country to see.
That's a heck of a breakdown. And when we come back, I'm going to put Blue on the spot for a prediction. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, August 26th, that's tomorrow. It's officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL preseason predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. It starts midnight tonight, which is August 26th, 24 hours. You want to take a flyer on that MVP race. Maybe this is another Lamar Jackson year coming up, or maybe you think it's Tua Tagovailoa's year. Maybe you think the Dolphins are going to shock the world and win the Super Bowl. You're going to get your best value to lock that in tomorrow. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets right now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. We have the great Larry Blustein from Prep Red Zone, Florida, 560 WQAM, the Sixth Ring Cane. Blue is with us. All right, Blue. I know I saw the face you made when I previewed your prediction is coming up. I know not easy to predict week 1 in a game like this, a top 10 matchup. Miami at number 10, Notre Dame top 5. Who you got this Sunday, Blue?
Well, here's the way that I looked at it. And it's almost like, you don't really know for sure, but the one thing that I do know is that Miami's special teams are not as good as they've been. Their kicking game, you're dropping off so much from what it's been in the past. And I think that's where the game is going to be won and lost. I think that, we saw the Notre Dame kicking game last year. That got them by Penn State with a big, to get into that national championship game. And I think it comes down to that. I think it's going to come down to a field goal. It's going to come down to one of those, because you don't see either team running and hiding. You just don't. The defenses are too good. The coaching's too good. The personnel's too good. I just think it comes down to that special team. Miami may lose by 3, like late in the game. But you know what? I just think it's going to be an entertaining. We're going to find out a lot about the program. And listen, if they win, listen. I mean, I'm this isn't a right or wrong type of thing, because I really don't know. I mean, and I don't know anybody. I look at these prognosticators and they're coming up with all these, but how do you know? You have too many first-year players playing on both sides to really have a grasp of it. Now, if they both played last week, we could say, okay, well, that, but this is game 1. And, and this isn't the only game that's like that. And I'm not trying to skirt it. I told you who I thought, Gut would win. But at the same time, if they don't, they don't. And I would be glad to be wrong, but I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know how these guys are going to gel together. I hope that, what I said in, breaking down the secondary, the talent is there, but they've never played together. But that could be said in this era of the portal. You could probably bring 80 teams. I saw the other day where Danny Mullen made his debut with UNLV, and I'm looking and I watched that game and I'm thinking, oh, this isn't UNLV of last year. Their defense, but there's so many new players, and that's going to be the fact that, when you see USF, they're going to have new players. When you're going to see FSU, they have a ton of new players. So, just to say, I think that this is going to be competitive, and I think the nation's going to see one of the great games, and that's great.
Yeah, I'm still yet to give my, and I'm waiting. I put Blue on the spot today because this is when I have Blue on. I still
Yeah.
haven't made my official prediction yet. I'm going to do that later in the week, but I sympathize with Blue because we're trying to be professionals here, and it's not easy. Like, it's not easy to handicap
No.
the first game of the season for two top 10 teams. All right, so Blue, you mentioned it. You attended 7 different high school games in 3 days over the
Yeah.
weekend, which I know that's what you love to do. Like, you live for this. Did you have a chance, Blue, to watch any Miami Hurricanes commits or big time recruiting targets? If so, who stood out to you?
Well, I did. I watched Jacksonville Bulls with J.J. Sparks, who Miami's bringing in along with some of the better offensive linemen in the country and in the state. Impressed, very technically sound, really good. I got a chance to talk to them a little bit. They played one of the local teams in South Florida, Monarch, in that Broward Showcase. But that Broward Showcase brought in some really good teams. I mean, think of the job that they've done over the last couple of years. This year, they have 4 of the top 8 teams in the country, including the number 1 team. And you know what? I thought going in that Mater Day would have their own way against St. Thomas, but I should have learned from last year when they played against Bishop Gorman, and they more than held their own against Bishop Gorman.
It's funny, my son and I, we were watching that game on TV, and we were proud of St. Thomas.
I mean, they were down, and let's not hide the fact that Mater Day's loaded. I mean, they're as I said to my friend, I said, they're the Yankees. They're that type of, over the last 2 decades have dominated, and the kids that they've put out are crazy. Bryce Young type of players, and the guys that they have coming out this year are crazy. I mean, with a lot of talent, but you got it. And they played, and St. Thomas played without Fitzpatrick. Bryce Minka Fitzpatrick's brother, who's going to the University of Georgia. He was hurt and he didn't play, so got to give them credit. But the other big game was St. Joseph's of Pennsylvania, who loaded in their own right. Marvin Harrison came out of there, and his brother plays there now, and we know what type of talent. They were up 28-0 on American Heritage Plantation, and you got to give Dia Bell, who's arguably the number 1 quarterback in the country, headed to Texas, and that Plantation American Heritage team, a lot of credit. They battled back and won the thing 31-28 on national TV, and everybody got a chance to see them. We saw Corner Canyon of Utah, who came in looking a lot like BYU. This is Zach Wilson. This is Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart's brother played on that team and looked pretty good. We had an opportunity also, to watch teams, St. Francis Academy. I mean, that you're talking about a team that is as big as colleges, and they had their way with Chaminade Madonna, which a lot of people never do. But we had an opportunity to watch those type of teams that came in from outside of state. Plus, getting an opportunity on Saturday morning to watch 2 of our own real good teams in Christopher Columbus and Miami South Ridge. Great talent. And then Miami Northwestern. A lot of people thought, oh, well, who's Orange Lutheran? But, Orange Lutheran's part of that Trinity League with St. John Bosco, with Mater Day, with Jay Serra in California. So, yeah, all those years we bitch and moan about, hey, our teams have to go out of the area. We never get a chance to see these teams, but we do. And, we're better for it. And everybody now today is highly critical of Florida. Oh, we're not as good as we thought we were. But you know what? When you're putting a public school up against, some of these programs who can pick and choose wherever they want, like the IMGs of the world, and it's awfully tough. But it's at the end of the day, you look at Miami's roster and you look at some of those players. And when we mentioned just now in the breakdown, kids like Bain, guys like, Wesley Bassane, players like that, Ray Joseph, they're all local kids, Mark Fletcher, they're all local kids. And, and that's the one thing that's great. And Ryan Rodriguez, who probably epitomizes, what a college football player is about. Somebody who comes in to Miami and then probably not as rated as highly as anybody. And right now he's the heart and soul. You could plug him in at any of the positions on the offensive line. And that's what I'm saying. You know, I mean, that's tough when you're talking about athletes like that. And sure, Miami loses a lot of kids. They go away, you know, but even when Miami Hurricanes were dominating back in the days, you still lost Isaac Bruce, and you still lost Steve Hutchinson, and you still lost guys, you know, like Derek Thomas and Marvin Jones. So, you know, and still won 5 national championships. So, you know what? That shows you the abundance of talent that they have here in South Florida, and that train's not stopping anytime soon.
I love it. By the way, one of the names that Blue just mentioned reminded me. So, you know, Mark Fletcher, of course, being a former standout local high school kid a couple of years ago, now being a standout at Miami. Mark Fletcher is going to join the show this week. And actually,
Nice.
I just literally got confirmation of that before Blue brought his name up. So we're going to be talking. We're going to have a special episode tomorrow afternoon with Mark Fletcher talking about the first game week of the year. Blue, you have the radio show tonight on WQAM. Yes. What can fans expect from that?
Yeah, we're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk, you know, they have some, in addition to Miami and Notre Dame, there's a couple of other games that right here in the city. FIU plays against Bethune on Friday, and then you have the Orange Blossom Classic, Florida A&M and Howard, who are going to hopefully not dig up the field at Hard Rock on Saturday, you know, for Sunday. So you have some pretty good stuff there. We'll talk to Liam Henry, who is a writer at FSU. They play Alabama this week. We'll kind of take a look at that game as well. We have Gabby Urrutia, who covers University of Miami. He'll kind of break down the season, you know, for us. We have Dylan Potts, the head coach at West Boca Raton. They won the state title last year, first time in school history. And then we talked about that game, American Heritage, coming from behind. We'll talk a little bit about that game as well. And then, so we've got it covered. We'll wrap up the first week of high school football, and we come your way between 6 and 8 on 104.3 FM now. FM, we get that thing. A lot of people are up in the Treasure Coast listening to us, and we're excited about it. And we thank you again, and we will see you on Sunday at the game, and I know that you'll be excited.
Yeah, and by the way, on that FM signal, that's where you'll hear me right after the Notre Dame game. I'll be doing post-game right there, 104.3 on the Miami Hurricanes radio network. What a great way. Having Blue on is a great way to kick off a very busy week. I mentioned Mark Fletcher is going to join us tomorrow. Wednesday, we're going to chat with Rock Boys football by very popular demand. I was on their show about a month ago. They're coming on my show this week.
Nice.
Thursday, we're going to do our crossover episode with Locked On Fighting Irish, Tyler Wojak, who, of course, knows the Irish roster frontwards and backwards, so I can't wait to chat with him. We're going to have the live show with Michael Yo and Gio on Friday. This is a very busy week. Thanks again to Larry Blustein. Follow him at Prep Red Zone FL, and we'll talk to everyone tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.